on this Monday morning. It's the summer. It's 60 days of summer. I'm Maniac, joined by our co-host here, Nick Lovin, Long Island Nick, now Amherst Nick, I guess you could say, and of course, Joe Cons. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great.
Yeah, just, it's another week of baseball's passed and couldn't be happier. You can see the smile on my face. Baseball's back and couldn't ask for anything better.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Cons. Of course, we're on the show 60 days of summer, a very special baseball season this year due to the COVID restrictions. So 60 days of games and it's 60 days of summer for us. You might be wondering, who are these gentlemen? Obviously, Nick, you were over at my apartment for the debut game. Tell us a little bit, Nick. We talked a little bit about then, how you became a huge Yankees fan.
Yeah, as a kid, I grew up on Long Island. I went to a bunch of Yankees games as a kid. 2-3 years old, had a Yankee hat on, had a bat in my hand. I played ball my entire life. And just really grew up with that 90s Yankees team that kind of cemented, my fanhood. Saw a lot of good games in the Bronx. Went to a couple games at Shea where the Yankees beat up on their little brothers. And just ever since have been just diehard as diehard as you could be, I feel like, as a Yankees fan. Taking that 4 train in and just enjoying ball games. And like you said, now I'm in Buffalo, but still bleed pinstripe blue.
And Cons, obviously, you're somewhat of a newcomer to Trainwreck Sports, but if we go way back, you were actually on Trainwreck Tonight. Now it's almost 2 years ago. Tell us a little bit about, how you became a baseball fan and your Yankee allegiance.
So I was born into it. When I was probably 5 or 6 years old, my grandfather, Tom, he put me in front of the TV, with him and taught me the game that he loved through the New York Yankees. I think growing up, my family was big into baseball. My Uncle Rick, give him the shout out, was a professional softball player in Rochester, New York for the Rochester Zeniths. Guy just hit nukes every game. I think every single person in on my mom's side of the family at least played college baseball. I played college baseball for a couple months at MCC before I hurt my shoulder. And, baseball is what we eat, sleep, and breathe. But the big thing is the New York Yankees. I can remember, the 96 World Series and everything that came with it, and just wanting to lead like Derek Jeter. I bring up Derek Jeter a lot, but, all I remember growing up was Derek Jeter's jump leap throw. I remember Derek Jeter jumping into the stands against the Red Sox on that hot summer, the hot summer night in July. That just made me fall in love with the game even more. And, watching the Red Sox and Yankees, even this season still brings back those brawls that we've seen. And, that's just how I came into it. It was just my family. I had no choice. Baseball was all I knew growing up.
No doubt about it. I think there's a warm, fuzzy feeling in all of us, and that feeling is that baseball is back. Stay tuned for this 60 Days of Summer series. We're going to be going throughout the season. We're starting with 3 Yankees fans here, myself included, but we're going to be including producer Burrs, some Indians fans, and a whole lot of variety along the way. And I think that's the best way to sum up this season is variety, because we're getting a lot of, even though baseball is back, stuff that maybe we're not used to or stuff that we maybe expect out of the season. Let's start with Nick, and then we'll go to you, Cons. What's the one thing that's happened in this first 10 days of summer, that's maybe surprised you the most about this baseball season?
One thing, I guess it's going to be an individual based. I really thought Shohei Ohtani was going to come off that Tommy John surgery a little stronger. After what he did last night, and he went, I think, 1 2/3 innings, 5 walks, gave up a couple runs, and then not even getting an out in his first outing, back at the end of July. Not what I'm expecting from someone that's honestly he's all over the zone. He's usually right, on the corners. He's all over that square. So the fact that he's not actually hitting spots, and when he does hit spots, he's getting smoked. I think he's got like a 38 ERA right now. And I know it's only 2 games in, but that's not really telling of what he did before he had Tommy John surgery. So that's really shocking to me. I mean, the guy could hit in his sleep. I'm not worried about that, but kind of worried about his pitching career at this point.
Hey, that's a fair concern. It doesn't matter how many appearances you've had. If you're a starting pitcher, double-digit ERA, no bueno. Cons, what's caught you off guard so far with this season?
Honestly, I know it's just his first start, but the hype is real. Nate Pearson of the Toronto Blue Jays is an absolute monster. I don't know if anyone caught his debut against the defending champion Washington Nationals, but just 2 hits over 5 scoreless innings. He struck out 5 batters while walking 2. I mean, it's just amazing to see, the number 1 prospect of the Blue Jays organization so young with so much confidence. I mean, you're talking about a guy who in the first inning was topping out at 96.8 miles an hour and then 98 plus in the second inning. And it was just a nightmare to watch the Nationals. They not only struggled to track the fastball, but they froze at the very sharp side of that sharp cutting slider. And then he was just letting that curveball go for 77 miles an hour. I mean, I was so fired up. I've gotten chills only a couple times in my life. One was when Jim Halpert and Pam Beasley from The Office finally got together. The other was Nate Pearson's debut. So, the Blue Jays went on to lose that game 4-0, but the biggest surprise for me was just how young Pearson is and how much confidence he has. And I'm just excited for, Pearson moving forward.
And it was the perfect kind of little mini tidbit of baseball being back. A young prospect dueling against a guy like Scherzer. An incredible game. I don't know who the Toronto Blue Jays are. I mean, I know who the Buffalo Blue Jays are, Cons. We'll get to that in a bit. And obviously, why that happened and why this whole season happened, why it's only 60 days of summer, unfortunately, the coronavirus. So it was a delay. They eventually got things going. But, guys, COVID's already rearing its head on this season and how it's already affecting, the day-to-day of the game. We'll get to the delays in a second with the Miami Marlins. But now you're seeing individual players just opting out, players who were going to be involved this season, but deciding that they're seeing the day-to-day of it and they don't want to be. What's your guys' take on that? I mean, you've got guys like Lorenzo Cain, Yannis Cespedes this past weekend. What is your take? Because obviously I don't think any of us fault these athletes or these individuals for making this decision. But just what's your take on, them starting to play and then deciding against it, I guess?
Yeah, I think that this was something that we kind of expected as baseball fans, that since baseball was the first one to kind of get going with their season, that all eyes were going to be on them as far as how they were going to track it, how they were going to, quarantine players. And you were going to miss some of those star players. Even Mike Trout's been very vocal about he was undecided if he was going to come back or not. And it was kind of pushing me towards thinking like, oh man, are we really going to get through this? Is Manfred really going to start the season and then stop it? And then you see just a lot of things going on in the first couple, weeks of the season. You're like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen. But it's kind of scary to think that, this can travel so quickly in such a short period of time. We're talking about already the Yankees lost a series against the Phillies because of, trial and error, if you might say. So I can certainly understand players wanting to opt out. Nick Markakis opted back in for the Braves. And I think that's interesting too. But I think there's other guys waiting in the wings ready to play, which I think is really cool that they're storing these minor league players to kind of come up with those voids.
And obviously, health is no joke, but Nick P., you get a guy like Yannis, he opts out after the Mets are on a 4 or 5 game skid. Is he allowed to just opt in if they go on a 10-game winning streak? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's tough, man. You know what? With someone like Cespedes, it's always been a question mark with the guy. He's a hot dog in the field. He does all his things off the field. And then obviously he's got big injury issues. So I think if you're running a ball club and this guy opts out in the beginning of the season when the team is at its lowest, as a manager, I don't know if I want to let this guy play again. If 10 games from now, they bring off, 8 out of 10 and they win 8 out of 10 games and Cespedes all of a sudden wants to play ball again, I think I tell him to keep packing. At the end of the day, I get it. I get his concern. I get it. If it's truly COVID related, I'm on his side 100%. And like you said, Cons, if someone like Mike Trout, who is face of baseball and is trying to cement a legacy as maybe the best player ever potentially, is thinking about not playing, it shows you that that it's obviously more important than baseball. But if Cespedes is doing this for his own personal type of gain, not a fan of that at all.
Most definitely. We continue to see COVID, affecting the schedule. So like you alluded to, Kanza, the Phillies were forced to miss a bunch of games after they had the Marlins play there. and then they had the outbreak about 10 to 20 Marlins players and staff testing positive for COVID. So now we kind of have these double headers, these 7-inning double headers. The Reds and Tigers played one Sunday. Starting with Nick B. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, because obviously they've shortened it to 60 games. I think we're all a little bit excited about that because it was the constant argument someone who doesn't like baseball will make. One of the first one is there's too many games. So 60 games kind of solved that. But now for the true purists, it's kind of, I will say, I'll lead it off. I think it's a little bothersome to me that they're playing 7 innings. It definitely changes the entire scape of what a baseball game is, for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I was playing 7-inning doubleheaders when I was 16 years old. So to see these grown men that are getting paid millions of dollars playing a 7-inning game, I kind of feel like we're getting ripped off a little bit. But, to your point, if you told me 2 years ago that 2020 was going to have a 60-game season, I'd be upset. The fact that we're watching baseball right now kind of puts it into perspective that, at the end of the day, some baseball is better than none. Of course, I want to see 9-inning games, but I do want to see a full 60-game season as well. So at this point, whatever they need to do to get it done, like you said, though, the purist in me wants 9-inning baseball. It's a tough one.
Cons, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I gotta agree, with Nick on this one. I mean, it's we love that baseball is back. I love that there's a 60-game season for the reason of seeing these managers mix and match their pitchers, and it's almost like a chess match every game. That's great, but from a purist baseball standpoint, it's kind of like you're hitting fast forward on the season almost. And with 60 games in a season, if a guy goes down that's important to your lineup, well, he doesn't have the additional 100 games to recover from that. When he's out, he's out. Think about Trevor Bauer and these guys like Justin Verlander that they're getting injured early on. Now those aces or those anchors of those pitching staffs are out for 10, 12 games. That cuts into a good portion of your season. So from a baseball standpoint, for me, it's infuriating. The fact that it's exciting we get to watch these games, but it's infuriating because one injury could cost you your whole season, depending upon what position it is and how important it is. And I said early on, in another show that I was on, Buster Posey, he's not playing. He's the glue that holds that locker room together. Other guys have to step up. What's baseball in San Francisco without Buster Posey? It's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without the peanut butter. That's what it is for me,
That is fair. It's just a Hunter Pensapalooza now. 60 Days of Summer, obviously brought to you by Pazda Electric. Folks, if you're considering a residential or commercial electrical project, or you just have some questions, give Pazda Electric a call at 716-698-2711. And then just bringing everything full circle with the baseball purists. I got to talk to you guys about this before we get into the team and individual storylines. Extra innings rule. Who has some thoughts on that, and how angry are they about it?
I feel like all three of us are baseball.
Let me jump in real quick before you guys go. I think it's very exciting. I think that if you're a very casual to a lower level baseball fan, you love it. I think that the purists and all of us hate it. And I would say my quick solution, so that I get what they're doing. You don't want to have a 17-inning game when you've got 60 games in 66 days. But maybe move that runner to first for the 10th inning. And then at the 11th inning, you can move him to second. Because I just feel like the runner starting on second, it's like at MLB, that's way too basic of like a way to score, to be honest. I think the scoring is way too plentiful at that point.
I agree. I agree 100%. At the end of the day, you're talking about putting a runner in scoring position. The percentages of scoring with a runner in scoring position with no outs is tremendous. So
unless you're the New York Mets.
I was literally going to say, first and third a couple times today with yesterday a couple times with first and third and no outs, and they couldn't get it done. But you're right. But you're seeing a lot of different strategy now. You're seeing the leadoff hitter, whatever you want to call the hitter. I guess he is a leadoff hitter, dropping down a bunt, being intentionally walked. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I think I want to say the Royals game where someone scored in extra innings and there wasn't even an at-bat or an out. Or, no, there wasn't an at-bat. which is insane to think about. So you're seeing things right now that are just, it's not baseball after the ninth inning, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about strategy in baseball, but if I wanted to watch something like this, I'd watch college football. I mean, that's like, I just feel like you have to earn your spot on the base path. That's the whole point of baseball, is to get people on and score. And just giving them a freebie and extra innings, I mean, this is going to come across harsh, but if you think baseball games are too long, I mean, that's the game. That's what it is. It's a waiting game. That's the best. It's the same thing with chess. Chess is a waiting game. That's baseball. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the game needs to speed up for sure, but the extra inning thing for me, it's too gimmicky for me. It just doesn't feel like authentic baseball.
It does feel like they tried to turn baseball into like a amusement park almost with that extra inning. They're trying to replicate the NHL shootout. But yeah, I would say if I could make a quick change, if Manfred could somehow make an executive order, I would move the runner to first in the 10th inning, and then in the 11th inning, I would move to second. You don't have to move him to first permanently, but let's at least make it an extra inning, because, yeah, a bloop single off your top reliever shouldn't score a run. Like, let's just face it, that should not score a run. That should not be the way you lose a game. But we are going to keep moving on. We got actual storylines. This is the best part. We're talking about the COVID. We're talking about the politics. We're talking about Mike Trout maybe, not wanting to play. And that's all terrible. That's all terrible. But we have actual baseball. We have actual storylines, and it is great. My first take, I got to tell you guys, I wrote this in the rundown. I don't know your guys' thoughts on this, so I will introduce it. Regular season baseball to me, and I said this going in, 0% difference with no fans. 0% difference with no fans to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, because baseball is baseball no matter what way you spin it. Grab a ball, a bat, and a glove, and you can play at Cuomo Park in Depew if you wanted to. Go play wherever you want. It's baseball. If you're a great baseball player that you can block out, the noise and the fans, I mean, it is what it is. So I agree. It hasn't really been too different for me, except for when there's a fly ball, that's going to hit the warning track, and they pump that fake audio in where it's but other than that, it doesn't really bother me. I don't really pay attention to fans too much when I'm watching it live on TV.
Yeah, I think Kanji hit the nail on the head. I think what you're not seeing is the casual baseball fans at the park that are cheering a fly ball that think it's going to be a home run. But like you said, I mean, if you're a ball player and you're a good ball player, you can play at anything. I think where it's going to make a difference is at Yankee Stadium in October. I think that's where we're going to see a big difference. And I think that's when you're going to say that the fans not playing is going to make a big change in the game, because, I mean, that atmosphere in the Bronx is ruckus. So, I mean, to not have, the bleacher creatures just having beer showers after every home run and just the place shaking, that's going to be tough. But regular season baseball, it's kind of going as normal.
I agree. Come October, you're definitely going to see what we're missing out on. Speaking of missing out on, but baseball fans have felt like we got the short end of the stick. No season for April, May, or June. One group that was very happy about that. One group that thought they got away with it. One group that felt very lucky about that delayed start. The Houston Astros. Everyone, oh my God, February and March was it was just villainous. Everyone was on the Astros. Everyone couldn't wait for these games to start. These guys are going to get pelted. And then instead you have the delay. No baseball, April, May, June. It starts out a little slow. They're not exactly getting pelted. And then comes the man with the double first name, Joe Kelly. Guys, what are your thoughts on this? Because I would always talk to my roommate Max, who was a baseball player in college, and whenever someone would throw at someone, I always said, if they were smart to disguise it, they would just throw off speed. Because nobody ever throws at anybody off speed. Joe Kelly pulls that move, and next thing you know, he's suspended for, half a century. Give me your guys' thoughts on Joe Kelly, the reaction, what's going on there?
So, I mean, I'm sure Cons will agree with this. I hated Joe Kelly. I hated him. When he was with the Red Sox, I couldn't stand him. And especially with the brawl with him and Tyler Austin, I mean, that kind of cemented my hatred for him. I don't think it's probably the last time this has happened was when Roger Clemens came to the Yankees. That was the one time where I went from hating someone to loving them in the blink of an eye. What I saw from Joe Kelly was it was beautiful. Like you said, breaking balls. But the fact that he got suspended for what you said, is a half a century. I mean, what is it, 24 games when it's really, I mean, when you actually add it up, it's insane. Cons, you could delve in a little deeper, but I love Joe Kelly. Love him.
So yeah, Nick, I think you kind of touched base on it, but when Joe Kelly was a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, they coined the term the Joe Kelly Fight Club, and Maniac, I mean, what's the first rule of Fight Club? You don't talk about Fight Club, right? But when it comes to Joe Kelly, that's all baseball fans are talking about right now. I think the cool thing about it was, having been a catcher, back in high school, if an ump made a bad call, if we wanted to send a message, I ducked on a fastball. A lot of people see that as a dirty thing, but it's the way that you police the game. If you really think you're not calling a good game, I'm going to duck on a fastball, and you're going to get hit, and then the next time you're not going to make that bad call. So this is Joe Kelly saying, Manfred, you didn't do your job. We're going to do it for you. And he just launches a 96-mile-an-hour fastball right above Alex Bregman, which to me, it just, oh my gosh, my heart was just so warm seeing that. But I think that Joe Kelly is the hero right now in Los Angeles, because you have to remember that 2017 run by the Astros, they took that World Series title right away from the Dodgers. So Joe Kelly is now the hero in LA, and I think he'll appeal that suspension. But it sounds to me, maybe he already had, but it sounds to me like the MLB is going based off that Red Sox brawl, that he is a repeat offender and he's hot-headed. But, I hated Joe Kelly when he was at the Red Sox, but I got to be honest with you, Tyler Austin's not a Yankee anymore.
Right.
I have no loyalties anymore to Tyler Austin, so Joe Kelly's he's my guy right now. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Hey, I 100% agree with you guys. Just like in Greek mythology, Helen of Troy had a face that launched 1,000 ships. Joe Kelly's face launched 1,000 people. We did it. Now, real quick, before we move on from this, guys, obviously, like we say, he's suspended, the equivalent of, 20-plus games. You're right. Manfred kind of put the players in this position. He didn't properly discipline the Astros for cheating, which they got caught. Everyone on Twitter, Joe Kelly getting suspended longer than any Astros player did for cheating. If you were Manfred, if you were the disciplinary committee, real quick for both of you, how would you have treated this situation? Because I don't think you could have let it go. You cannot just let it go. Even though in the history of baseball, nobody's ever been suspended for not hitting a batter. Obviously, I think if it was me, I would have gone 5 games. I would have gone 5 games. I just think the 9 is a little harsh.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Cons.
I was going to say, you're talking about Joe Kelly's suspension, right?
Yes.
Going a little heavy on that. Yeah, I think, I don't think, we all knew what Kelly was doing. No matter what Dave Roberts, manager of Los Angeles, says, sometimes he loses control. And then the video comes out of Joe Kelly throwing a changeup through his house window. He sometimes loses control. We know what Joe Kelly was doing. With that being said, though, I think Manfred has to ease up a little bit. I agree with a 4 or 5 game suspension, maybe just to cool it down. But how about the umpires? No warnings, nothing whatsoever. If your umpires who are there to police the game aren't doing anything, what's that saying about your league? Are they in agreement with what's going on, or did they not actually think that he was trying to hit, Correa and Bregman? So I think maybe Manfred needs to sit down with his staff. The umpires send out a letter saying, "Look, guys, if they're throwing anywhere near a hand, a head, anything like that, automatic warning." But other than that, nothing was said. No warnings were given. Don't think a suspension warranted, in my opinion. But think maybe a 4 or 5 game, if you're going to do it, would be a little bit more than helpful than an 8 game, especially for the relief pitching staff for the Dodgers. They need him. They paid a lot of money. So.
Someone better call Terry Collins, because I think Collins wants the umpire's ass in the jackpot on this one. So we'll see. We'll see if the umpires step in the future, because something tells me that despite this, Joe Kelly will not be the last pitcher to throw at an Astros batter this season. Speaking of pitching, last year I had the absolute pleasure of attending the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game in Cleveland. Cleveland has had great pitching for years, but last year they were chanting for a pitcher during the All-Star Game. Was it Corey Kluber? No. Was it Mike Clevenger? No. I'm in there in the 5th inning of the All-Star Game, and the fans are going nuts chanting, "Bieber, Bieber, Bieber." And little do they know that it was not much ado about nothing. This guy is an absolute fireballer stud. Talk about this start. Talk about this. Obviously, we're only 10 days in to the 60 days of summer. But, I mean, my goodness, what a start for Bieber fever in Cleveland, gentlemen.
Yeah, Nick, I got a lot to say about this guy because he's on my fantasy baseball team.
Yeah.
So in just 2 starts, he leads the American League with 27 strikeouts, 13 against the Twins on Thursday, and then 14 against the Royals in the season opener. Those 27 strikeouts in 2 outings matched a 1954 MLB record set by Carl Spooner, the Brooklyn Dodgers. Not the LA Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers.
I was wondering when everything was going to fall.
And he's also the first pitcher in MLB history to have 13-plus strikeouts and 0 runs allowed in back-to-back starts. Okay? So this guy is a driving force behind the starting rotation because now you look at the Cleveland Indians rotation, and they're the first team since 1901 to have 4 10-plus strikeout outings from their staff in the first 7 games of the season. I'm going to go on a limb here and say, are we going to be talking about Bieber in the AL Cy Young Award running this year? I think so. Right now, it's only been 2 starts, but is he showing any signs of stopping?
Yeah, you're spot on, Cons. I mean, take the Royals for what they are at face value. They're still a big league ball club, but the Twins are one of the most dangerous ball clubs offensively in the league. To be able to do what he did, 13 strikeouts, it's special. We're seeing something in Cleveland right now that is special. It really is. I mean, this guy is pitching as good as you've seen in a 2-game stretch. And like you said, we're only a few games in, but what he has right now is lights out stuff. And the Cy Young has got to be his for the taking at this point early on. And I know it sounds weird to talk about it 2 games in or, 2 wins in, but that's the season we're playing with 60 games right now. You got to really talk about it after every win.
So, like Damon to wear down. Oh, my goodness.
That was very productive. I mean, as much as I would love to have Alex Rodriguez on the podcast, unfortunately, we will not be doing that on episode number 1. But yes, Bieber with a strong start to the season. Not surprising, obviously, Cleveland has had, like we said, that wealth of pitching. Clearly has to play in a little bit to the coaching there as well. And you alluded to it earlier in the show, Nick. Not so much a strong start for Shohei Ohtani.
Not at all. I'm surprised of what I've seen from him. Like I was talking about a little bit earlier, that guy was a painter on the mound. I mean, he was on the black, at the knees, top of the strike zone. I mean, he was commanding that zone until he got, his injury, unfortunately. He could hit in his sleep. The offensive thing, he'll be fine. But the pitching worries me. Tommy John surgery is something that is becoming very normal for a baseball player to have. And it's usually without side effects. 20 years ago, when someone had Tommy John, it was a toss-up. I mean, it might even been worse than a toss-up at that point.
Way worse than a toss-up, for sure, Babbitt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, it was basically, I would say, 25% or worse that they were ever going to get back to that point in the career they were.
100%. And, I mean, now pitchers come back throwing harder. They come back. It's insane where we've gone with that surgery. But to see what I'm seeing from Shohei Ohtani, that's not him. And he's also not a guy that really doesn't do – he does well under pressure. And, I mean, there's nothing to feed off of in the crowd. There's no real pressure coming from the stands. So I'm a little surprised at what I've seen. I know we're only 2 games in, but it's worrisome. If I'm an Angels fan, if I'm in the organization, I'm a little worried because you have yourself tied up to this guy to be a starter in your rotation along with his offensive skills. So it's tough.
No doubt about that. And as we rock along, speaking of rocking along, Yankees off to a strong start this season. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens in the Sunday night game, but obviously a strong last week for them. In this shortened season, does that surprise you? Does that what you guys expected from the Yankees? I mean, obviously they are World Series favorites. Like, they're not fooling anyone. They were the favorite to win the World Series. But I mean, even in years where they've won this World Series, sometimes they've gotten off to slow starts. I mean, you guys were big fans in '98. You remember '98 was one of the worser starts in franchise history for an eventually successful team. So just talk to me about this start. what surprised you specifically with the Yankees and maybe what you're looking ahead to in the weeks to come?
I think the surprising thing for me, and I know the Yankees have been all about the long ball, historically, but I mean, they're scoring majority of their runs on home runs. I mean, Aaron Judge is on fire. I think he has five home runs in 5 games.
Oh yeah, five for 5.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not. And the cool thing about Aaron Judge is usually we see him chasing a lot of pitches out of the zone. And those 5 home runs he's hit in 5 games, he's not wasting any time at the plate. If he sees a pitch, he's going after it with a lot of power. But I think the biggest surprise for me with the Yankees is Gio Urshela. I mean, what a diamond in the rough to find. He comes on strong. He's hitting here. He's hitting there. But then last night he just pops out a grand slam, no problem. Right. It's unbelievable to see this guy blossom into a great role player for the Yankees. I mean, he's a key contributor now. He's a third baseman. He's pushed Andujar, who was out last year with an injury. He's pushed him out of the lineup. They can't even find a spot for Andujar now because Gio Urshela is on fire, and he doesn't commit any errors, and that's the biggest problem with Andujar. But I think the biggest surprise for me with this team, we know they're favorites, but Gio Urshela is the biggest surprise for me. I thought maybe last year was a little bit of a fluke. I might be crazy saying that, but to see him come on so strong at the beginning of the year, I think it's a good sign for the Yankees.
I'm with you, Cons. Urshela is looking every bit as good as he was last year, and I mean he's been dazzling in the field. You knew what you got with his glove, but the bat is special too. He's really doing well at the plate. I think something that's surprising to me is, I mean, of course, Judge is going to be chasing. I hope he chases Mattingly's 8 home run streak from 1987. That was obviously special, a little before our time, but at the end of the day, something special. Especially because he's probably going to be the next captain as well. I mean, let's face it. But at the end of the day, Giancarlo Stanton is really having some good at-bats. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff from Stanton. I mean, I'm seeing him take pitches with a purpose. And you both know, because you both have played baseball, there's a way to take pitches. And when you take pitches and you're in a hitting stance and you're actually in a position to hit the ball and you take it athletically, it looks a lot different than when you're just up there looking to take a pitch. So to see him up there taking pitches, the way he's taking pitches, I mean, pitches that are borderline, getting the calls, and then putting good wood on the ones that he's actually going for. He's got a little bit more of a selective zone right now that he's swinging at, and he's hammering the ball. So that's my big surprise right now.
No doubt about it. And I mean, obviously, I don't think the winning is surprising, but maybe the way they've done it, with the long ball, like you guys said, and a couple of comeback wins along the way. A couple of Maryland-based comeback wins. I believe last Saturday they were down, 3-0 to the Nationals in the 6th of the 7th. And then, of course, the big comeback this past week against the Baltimore Orioles when it seemed like all was said and done. But let's face it, unless the Yankees win in Baltimore, it's not all said and done, and you don't know where they're going. And I want to say, the thing about Gio Urshela to me that's awesome is throughout all of our Yankee fans, I think we've seen a couple of one-year wonders or even 1 or 2 month wonders. If you get into the Chad Curtises, the Shane Spencers, the Shelly Duncan, of course, no doubt about it. You get these guys who have these great times, just like Urshela had last year, and then they come the next year and they're a 240 hitter, they're going down to AAA or whatever, but it does not seem that way with Urshela. It seems like whatever happened when he became a Yankee is continuing to click, and he's continuing to prosper there. Obviously, the season rolling on, guys. I mean, I will say, I don't know if you guys have any specific examples, but I definitely forgot that certain players were on certain teams, things like that. I don't know if you guys have any examples, but the one thing that I think we're all looking forward to in our own way, Buffalo Blue Jays.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing that that there's a big league ball club 10 miles away from my house. It's really special. I think it's good for the city. I mean, I know obviously we can't go to the games and whatnot, but the city seemed to come behind this decision. It was actually really cool to see, people that don't even really, like you said, Conj, you got your casual baseball fans, and then you got people that don't really watch baseball at all, and they were all really behind this decision. So I think it really brought the city together, and I think you're going to get more people interested in baseball, and you might turn people into Blue Jays fans, which in my opinion is good for the game. If they weren't watching baseball and now they have a team, it's great.
Yeah, but before I get into my Buffalo Blue Jays talk, which I'm sorry, I misspoke early by calling them the Toronto Blue Jays. I forget sometimes. That's kind of like when we talk about the San Diego Chargers, but they're the Los Angeles Chargers. You talk about tracking players. I mean, I knew Anthony Rendon was on the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, but it didn't dawn on me until the other day when they said Rendon's up to the plate, and I'm like, oh, are the Nationals on? And I'm like, oh wait, no, he's hitting behind Mike Trout, like. And then I looked at the lineup and I'm like, this team should be doing a lot better than they are right now. And it was just amazing for me to finally like wake up and realize baseball's here and I should probably start looking up who moved where. But kind of to go back to that Buffalo Blue Jays discussion, I agree. I gotta be honest, I was really mad just when the initial thought was not to come, the discussions were to come to Buffalo, but they're saying, I don't know, the facilities aren't that great. We're going to call around. And it's like, no, you have to play in Buffalo. And then finally, it was just like, why not? I mean, it's the best thing you can do marketing wise. It's the best thing you can do to turn casual fans into baseball fans. We don't have a basketball team here in Buffalo. That's still another question that I don't understand with all the history with Western New York basketball. If you don't know, I'll have a talk with any of you any day about it. But as far as baseball goes, it's smart. It makes sense. The farm team plays there. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, they all came up through the system. People were fans of that team. It's an exciting time to be a Buffalo sports fan with hopefully the NFL season happening. This was just a great gift for the city of Buffalo, who cherishes every sports team, no matter how angry we get at them all the time. We're always there to support teams with the name Buffalo in front.
No one will ever care about our teams as much as you do. And you guys said exactly. The fact that they were considering not playing these games in Buffalo, I get it. It was frustrating for sure. But this was a no-brainer. I mean, you play the AAA games here. If you want to build any Blue Jays, fanhood, any fans here, the only way you're going to do it is by getting that big league club to play in Buffalo. I'm very hopeful that this will work out. I'm very hopeful that eventually it'll lead to maybe 1 or 2 series throughout the year in Buffalo. Very optimistic for that. And gentlemen, I know obviously you guys want to see these games. I know we want to see our Yankees. I won't go on too much because the announcement's still coming out this week, but something tells me we will be able to see the New York Yankees live this season in Buffalo. So definitely stay tuned for that. And obviously, stay tuned for more episodes of 60 Days of Summer. I mean, because we're not going anywhere. And like I said, we're going to be bringing on producer Burrs, Braves fans, and of course fans from all across the league as this crazy summer, this crazy season continues on. Gents, I mean, this was nothing. I can't believe we knocked this out so quick. Any thoughts as we head down the 7th inning stretch here?
Something real quick. I just wanted to bring up Yankees one more time. I mean, I know, that's what I do.
Can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. A little worried about Paxton. A little worried about his velocity right now. This is a guy that throws consistently over 96. I think he was the hardest throwing left-handed pitcher last year. To see him throwing 91, 92, and I mean, he got hit hard. So a little concerned about him. So, I mean, I'm sure Cons is feeling the same way. Zach, Maniac, I'm sure you're feeling the same way as well.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is I'm waiting for my phone to ring. I'm waiting for the Yankees to call me to take Gary Sanchez's spot. I got to be honest with you, man. The Kraken, where is he? Is he drowning? I mean, the guy swings every pitch out of his shoes. Gary, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, stay right center, drive with your front shoulder, and drive the ball to right field. You don't need a home run every time. You are not making contact. You got to hit recently, but I think he's like 2 for 20. We got to get out of that because there's a lot of time and money invested in Gary Sanchez right now, and it's not panning out. So I don't know what to do, but Gary, step it up. You heard it here first.
No doubt, he needs to step it up. That's Nick Levin's L. Gary. As we move on, so we're coming down to the end of that thing, or the end of the first episode of 60 Days of Summer. Let's go into extra innings. We got extra innings. We're all going to make one prediction for this time, relatively next week for the MLB. I will kick it off. I will say the prediction that by this time next week, which will be approximately 16 and a half days into the season, if you count the opening night when basically 4 teams played, one player will have at least 10 dingers. We got 2 players at 5 right now. I think that over the next week, one of the guys with 4, one of the guys with 5 is going to have another hot week, and I think we're going to have a guy with double-digit dingers, basically at the equivalent of April 17th, April 18th in a typical season.
I'm going to go Aaron Judge will be the first to 10. He'll get to 10 by next Sunday night, and he's going to get to 8 games straight. He's going to have 8 games straight with home runs, and then he's going to hit 2 in a game after his break. So it's going to be one of those Joe DiMaggio situations where he goes on another tear after the streak and puts another 34 games together. So I'm thinking that Judge is going to get to 10 first, and he's going to get to it quicker than we've ever seen before. Well, maybe not ever seen before, but we're going to get there quick.
It's going to feel quicker than we've ever seen before.
Right.
No doubt about it. All right, Cons, lay it on me. What do you got?
What do I got? I think that Shane Bieber is going to hit 50 strikeouts maybe by the mid-August.
So within 4 starts, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be insane. Yeah, that would be an average of 13 strikeouts. First, we had 14, 13. To maintain that pace, he would basically need 13 and 13 as next two. But based on his stuff, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, who's hitting him? I mean, right? And prove me wrong, MLB. Until you can hit Bieber, that's Bieber fever over here. And Kanzi singing, baby, 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 oh, mid-August.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know you had such a heavenly voice.
Yeah, wow.
And folks, if you want more heavenly content, make sure you subscribe to Trainwreck Sports and stay tuned for the next episode of 60 Days of Summer. Huge shout out to Cons, huge shout out to Nick Levin for joining me. And as you know, folks, it's when it comes to this season, when it comes to any season of America's pastime, it's just 3 words. Let's play ball.